So I'm going to continue the from the life of Venerable Sariputta. And so yesterday's reading ended with the stream entry of Upatissa, later to be known as Sariputta, after hearing a short summary of the teachings by Venerable Assaji. And at once he knew, here the means of deliverance is to be found. And he said to the elder, do not enlarge upon this exposition of the Dhamma, Venerable Sir, this much will suffice. But where does our master live? In the bamboo grove, wanderer. Then please go ahead, Venerable Sir. I have a friend with whom I have made an agreement to share the Dhamma. I shall inform him, and together we shall follow you and come into the Master's presence. Upatissa then prostrated himself at the elder's feet and went back to the park of the wanderers. Kolita saw him approaching and immediately knew, today my friend's appearance is quite changed. Surely he must have found the deathless. And when he inquired, Upatissa replied, yes, friend, the deathless has been found. And he told him all about his meeting with the elder Assaji. And when he recited the stanza he had heard, Kolita too was established in the fruit of stream entry. So Moggallana Mahamoggallana reached stream entry through the same verse as his close friend Sariputta, but heard it from Sariputta himself. And he asked the same question, so where does the master live? And he's told he lives in the bamboo grove, and so they decide to go and pay respects to the Buddha. Excuse me. But Sariputta was one who always respected his teacher. And therefore he said to his friend, first, my dear, we should go to our teacher, the wanderer Sanjay, and tell him that we have found the deathless. If he can grasp it, he will penetrate to the truth. And even if he does not, he may, out of confidence in us, come with us to see the master. And hearing the Buddha's teaching, he will attain to the penetration of the path and fruition. So both of them went to Sanjay and said, "O teacher, a Buddha has appeared in the world. His doctrine is well proclaimed, and his community of monks is following the right path. Let us go and see the master." And Sanjay says, what are you talking about? And he refuses to go with them and tries to persuade them to stay with him. And you can be co-leaders of the community, and you'll be so famous, and so everyone will look after you so well. But the two wanderers refuse to be deflected. So they say, well, it's up to you, teacher, to know whether to go or not. And Sanjay says, no, you may go, but I cannot. And they ask him, why not, teacher? I am a teacher of many. If I were to revert to the state of a disciple, it would be as if a huge water tank were to change into a small pitcher. I cannot live the life of a pupil now. Do not think like that, teacher, they urged. Let it be. My friends, you may go, but I cannot. O teacher, when a Buddha has appeared in the world, people flock to him in large crowds and pay homage to him, carrying incense and flowers. We too shall go there. And then what would happen to you? To which Sanjay replied, what do you think, my pupils? Are there more fools in this world or more wise people? Fools there are many, O teacher, and the wise are few. If that is so, my friends, then the wise ones will go to the wise recluse Gautama, and the fools will come to me, the fool. You may go now, but I shall not. Thank you. So this story is, indicative how someone attached to this idea of being a teacher and being revered and looked up to the extent that they're willing to sacrifice or hope for enlightenment, prefer, was weighing out what's better, to be teacher of all these people or to be a student with a fully enlightened Buddha, and decides to go with being a teacher. So it enters into the books for one of the most foolish people in the history of humanity. So the two friends left saying, "You will come to understand your mistake, teacher." And after they'd gone, there was a split amongst Sanjay's pupils, and his monastery became almost empty. And seeing his place deserted, Sanjay vomited hot blood. This is quite common in the Buddha's time. I've not seen it in my lifetime. It's like, I've seen people get really angry, but vomiting hot blood, that's really quite extreme. So 500 of his disciples left along with Upatissa and Kolita, and 250 came back to Sanjaya, too challenging, too difficult. And so with the remaining 250 and their own following from before, the two friends arrived at the Bamboo Grove Monastery. There the Buddha, Master, seated amongst the fourfold assembly, was preaching the Dhamma. And when he saw the two wanderers coming, he addressed the monks, "These two friends, Upatissa and Kolita, who are now approaching, will be my two chief disciples, an excellent pair." And having arrived, the friends bowed low in homage to the Blessed One and sat down at one side. And when they were seated, they said to the Master, "May we obtain, Lord, the going forth under the Blessed One. May we obtain the higher ordination." And the Blessed One said, "Come, bhikkhus, well proclaimed is the Dhamma. Now live the life of purity to make an end of suffering." This alone served as the ordination of these venerable ones. So in the very early days of the sasana, there was no entry ceremony. It was called Ehi Bhikkhu Upasampada. So Ehi means come. So it's just like, "Come bhikkhu," and that's it. That's all. You don't have to learn any chanting or all the stuff that you do these days. So as the number of monks increased, then the Buddha had Venerable Sariputta Mahamoggallana be the preceptors in his place. But as far as I can gather, it was a very, very simple ceremony with just asking for refuge, and as I say, not the detail which came in later in the Buddha's life towards the end, when the ceremony which we perform these days started to take shape. So like any organization, basically the Sangha went from more kind of informal, simple forms to more complex. And then the Master continued his discourse, taking the individual temperaments of the listeners into consideration. And with the exception of Upatissa and Kolita, all of them attained to arahantship. But on that occasion, the two friends did not attain higher paths and fruits. For them, a longer period of preparatory training was needed in order that they could fulfill their personal destiny, that of serving as the Blessed One's chief disciples. So after their entry into the Buddhist order, the texts always refer to Upatissa by the name Sariputta, while Kolita is always Mahamoggallana. For his intensive training, Mahamoggallana went to live at a village near Magadha named Kalawalaputta, on which he depended for alms. And on the 7th day after his ordination, when he was engaged in intense meditation, he was troubled by fatigue and torpor. But spurred on by the master, he dispelled his fatigue, and while listening to the master expound the meditation subject of the elements, he won the 3 higher paths and reached the acme of a chief disciple's perfection. But the Venerable Sariputta continued to stay near the master at a cave called the Boar's Shelter, depending on Rajakaha for his alms. And if any of you have been on pilgrimage to India and gone to Rajagaha, you can go into that cave, or what we believe to be that cave, and go and sit and meditate or chant, and it's very powerful. Anyway, half a month after his ordination, the Blessed One gave a discourse to Sariputta's nephew, the wandering ascetic Diganaka. So Diga means long, and nails mean and Naka means nails. So he had these really long nails. So he was. This is one of his practices. He didn't cut his nails. So easier than the Eightfold Path. So I think he was dressed in a particular way, and so he and Sariputta was standing behind the master, fanning him. And while listening to the discourse and following it attentively with his mind, as though sharing the food prepared for another, Sariputta reached the acme of knowledge pertaining to a disciple's perfection, and attained to arahantship together with the 4 analytical knowledges, called the Patisambhida. And his nephew, at the end of the sermon, was established in the fruit of stream entry. Now it may be asked, did not Sariputta possess great wisdom? And if so, why did he attain arahantship later than Moggallana? And the answer, according to the commentaries, is because of the greatness of the preparations required. When poor people want to go anywhere, they take to the road at once. But in the case of kings, extensive preparations must be made, and these require time. And so too is it in order to become the first chief disciple of a Buddha. So on that same evening, when the evening shadows had lengthened, the master called his disciples to assembly and bestowed upon the 2 elders the rank of chief disciples. At this, some monks were displeased and murmured amongst themselves, the master should have given the rank of chief disciples to those who were ordained first, that is, the group of 5 disciples, or if not to them, then either to the group of 55 bhikkhus, headed by Yasa, or to the 30 of the auspicious group, or the Bhadavagya, or else to the 3 Kassapa brothers. The passing over all these elders is given to those whose ordination was the very last of all. I'll come back to this in a minute. So the master inquired about the subject of their talk, and when they told him, he said, I do not show preference, but give to each what he has aspired to. When, for instance, Anya Kondanya in a previous life gave alms 9 times during a single harvest, he did not aspire to chief discipleship. His aspiration was to be the very first to penetrate to the highest state, arahantship. And so it came about. But many eons ago, at the time of the Buddha Anomadasi, Sariputta and Moggallana made the aspiration for chief discipleship, and now the conditions for the fulfillment of that aspiration have ripened. Hence I have given them just what they aspired to, and did not do so out of preference. So these accounts are I think written sometime later. But most of this is commentarial. But so this question of and the hierarchy, and as you know, the Sangha hierarchy is based upon ordination date, and so some monks feel this has been overridden by these two monks who just suddenly appeared just a few days ago, and now they've been elevated to the level of chief disciples. And they're saying, well, surely it should be the group of five who first became enlightened, or then the group consisting of the layman Yasa and his friends who all became enlightened in the park, or this would be auspicious group of 30, not sure that group. And then the three Kassapa brothers, these had huge number, many hundreds of disciples, and were fire worshippers. And they, if you've listened to the fire sermon, that was the sermon which they all became arahants. But really, firstly, thing that strikes me is that the difference in seniority in terms of is very short. It's just a matter of months. It's not that they were monks with a number of rains retreats under their belts, and then these strangers arrive. But this is all at the very beginning of the sasana. And the Buddha explained that every Buddha has two chief disciples, and they are two monks who have made firm vows many eons before in the time of previous Buddhas. And so this is kind of like the the custom or the protocol for a Buddha. And so it's the one case which allowing these great beings who have been developing the barami over many lifetimes to take their rightful place in the Sangha, it overrides the normal hierarchy. Excuse me. So I'm going to skip over this. There's chapters on the previous lives of Sariputta and how he appears in the Jataka stories. It's well worth reading, but as we are short for time, I'm going to skip to the section on Sariputta the man. And in the Mahapadana Sutta, the Buddha relates various details about beginning with the six Buddhas who preceded him, beginning with the Buddha Vipassi, 91 eons ago. He mentions their names, the periods in which they arose, their caste and clan, their lifespan, and the milestones of their teaching careers. So here, I mean, for a modern sensibility, we have a certain difficulty with these time spans, like 91 eons. Given that what we know about the Big Bang and the time frame just not compatible with the times that we're given for previous Buddhas. So, like one eon, I think I've said this before, is explained as you have a length of time is a length of one yojana is maybe 12 or 14 kilometers, something like that. When the Buddha would go wandering, he would walk about one yojana a day. And you have to imagine a stone mountain, which is one yojana long, let's say 12 kilometers, one yojana wide, one yojana high, okay, solid stone mountain. Once every 100 years, a bird flies by, and it's got a feather in its mouth for some reason. And this feather just brushes against the stone mountain. So the amount of time it would take that once in 100-year brush with a feather to erode the whole stone mountain, that's one eon, okay? And so the Buddha Vipassi was, and the Buddha could remember past lives for many eons. It wasn't, so, as I say, not just an ordinary wise human being. And so the Buddha Vipassi was 91 of these eons ago. So that obviously it doesn't, it just, you can't make that fit into what we know about the history of the universe, at least in modern scientific understanding. So yesterday there was this question about the relativity of time and space, but there's also a very interesting sutta in which the Buddha says there are many, many middle countries, many, many Indias, many, many heaven realms, many, many Dusita realms, many, many Tawatingsa heaven realms. So this kind of modern idea of the multiverse is, we find this already in the Buddha's teachings. So I think that's the clearest, indication that we're not talking about this particular world, this particular planet that we're on, but it's one of these things, like there's this incredible complexity of time and space and realms, and the Buddha would always say, just relate to these things in a way which is most helpful for your practice. This is a paraphrase, it's not actually. And so this applies also to like teachings on rebirth. This is not a question, is there rebirth? Is it like this? Is it like that? The Buddha says the basis of right view, which will provide the foundation for liberation, includes the acceptance, at least as I call a working hypothesis of rebirth. But that's only one point. The second one point is, well, how do you relate to the teaching of rebirth in a way that helps you on the Eightfold Path? It doesn't just mean believing in it and that's it, that's right view. It's taking this teaching of rebirth or of unimaginably long periods of time over which Buddhas have arisen and passed away. How do you take that conceptual framework with respect and with humility and integrate it into your way of understanding your life and your practice? So the Buddha could remember like 6 previous Buddhas and Vipassi, and he can mention their names, periods in which they arose, their caste and clan, their lifespan, the milestones of their teaching careers. He also states the names of their 2 chief disciples, who are in each case described as the chief pair of disciples, the excellent pair. And elsewhere in the Pali Canon, the Buddha declares that all the Buddhas of the past had a pair of chief disciples, such as he had in Sariputta and Moggallana, and all the Buddhas to arise in the future will likewise have such a pair. From such statements, we can see that the posts of chief discipleship are inherent in the very nature of the Buddha's dispensation. So he was conforming to a timeless paradigm, a paradigm followed by all the fully enlightened ones of the past and to be followed by all their successors in the future. The basic functions of the chief disciples are threefold: to help the master in consolidating the Dhamma and thereby in making it a vehicle of spiritual transformation and deliverance for as many beings as possible, both human and celestial; to serve as models for the other monks to emulate and to supervise their training; and thirdly, to assist in the administration of the Sangha, particularly when the Blessed One goes into solitary retreat or travels alone on an urgent mission. Always the Buddha remains the final authority at the head of the dispensation, and the appointment of chief disciples does not represent in any way a democratic devolution of powers. The Blessed One is the sole source of the teachings, the revealer of the path, the supreme charioteer of persons to be tamed. But just as a king requires ministers to supervise the affairs of state, so the Buddha, the king of the Dhamma, delegates responsibility for particular spheres of training to his best qualified disciples in each area. The reason the Buddhas always appoint two chief disciples seems to be to achieve an optimal balance between the spheres of responsibility and the human aptitudes available to meet them. A Buddha unites in his own person all perfections, but human beings of lesser stature, even enlightened arahants, will display diversities in their characters and talents which qualify them for different tasks. Thus, to supervise the main areas of responsibility, a Buddha is invariably attended by the two chief disciples. The right-hand disciple is distinguished by excellence of wisdom, which was Venerable Sariputta in this case, and his special task in the dispensation is the systematization of the doctrine and the detailed analysis of its content. By means of his deep insight into the ultimate truth and his sharp discernment of the sphere of differentiated phenomena, he is responsible for drawing out the subtle implications of the Dhamma and for explicating its meaning with a wealth of detail that the Buddha, as head of the dispensation, cannot personally attend to himself. The other chief disciple, who stands at the Buddha's left hand, is distinguished by his versatility in the exercise of spiritual power, Iti. In the Buddha Gautama's Sangha, this position is held by Venerable Mahamoggallana. Such spiritual power is not a means of dominating others or of self-aggrandizement, but must be founded upon a perfect realization of selflessness. The power springs specifically from mastery over the sphere of samadhi, which opens up a profound comprehension of the fundamental forces that govern mind and matter and their subtle interconnections. Guided by the compassionate ideals of the Dhamma, this power is used to remove obstacles to the secure establishment of dispensation in the world and to transform other beings who cannot be easily reached by the gentler, transformative approach of verbal instruction. So the Buddha would hold up these two chief disciples as models. He would say, "O monk of faith, O bhikkhus, should cherish this right aspiration. Oh, may I become such as Sariputta and Moggallana. For Sariputta and Moggallana are the model and standard for my bhikkhu disciples." in their mastery of the three aspects of the path, Sila, Samadhi and Panya, they embodied the qualities the monks still in training were to acquire for themselves. But even more, because they both possessed the analytical knowledges and skill in speech, they were the ideal teachers to whom the younger monks could turn for guidance and instruction. And in the Satyavibhanga Sutta, Buddha says, associate, O monks, with Sariputta and Moggallana and keep company with them. They are wise bhikkhus and helpers of their fellow monks. Sariputta is like a mother who brings forth, and Moggallana is like a nurse to the newborn child. Sariputta trains his pupils in the fruition of stream entry, and Moggallana trains them for the highest goal. Okay, so that's all we have time for today. Highly recommended book. So there's Sariputta and Moggallana, Ananda, and who else? Anuruddha, Mahakachana, Mahakassapa, and then there's a chapter on great women disciples of the Buddha, great nuns, great laymen, great laywomen. It's a real treasure, this book.
อันนมยังโอวาทกถาสาธุกรังทัทธามเสสาธุ